welcome to the second episode of the Dscribe Finals Footy Show. I'm your host, Brodie Cowburn, and I'm going to be running you through our extraordinary panel of talent we've got gathered here today. First, on my right, it's a budding AFL journalist extraordinaire from Burwood. We've had recently one-on-one times with North Melbourne footballer Ben Brown and AFL journalist Tom Brown. Not jumping to any conclusions, but I'd say that Jonathan Brown and Campbell Brown better watch their backs. Please say cheers to Mrs. Robinson and welcome Jessica to the panel.
Thank you, that's such a big lead-up.
Going across the table, over there on the far side, I'd like to welcome Angus. We only recruit the very best of the best here at the Dscribe Finals Footy Show. It's a G-long way to the top, but we've gone all the way there to get the very best all the way from the category. Angus, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brodie. It's great to be here. Cheers.
And finally, the last survivor from the panel last week. We can only assume that she scared everyone off with her fervent and biased Melbourne commentary. But we're so excited to have her back. Please welcome Nat Kerr.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back again.
Guys, very excited to be here. Obviously, a big first week of finals up. We thought there would be a few more close games than there actually were, but they ended up being a few blowouts and certainly plenty of talking points. Let's get stuck into talking about those results, and we'll start off with the first game of the week, which was the Tigers accounting for the Hawks at the MCG. Start off with you, Jess. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. I was expecting the Hawks to come out with a bit more fight and to give the Tigers a run for their money, but the Tigers just proved to be too good for them. I was very disappointed, especially with their leading goal kickers just missing easy set shots to keep them in the game. So they just gave the Tigers an easy win.
Bizarre something like that, really. You know, easy set shots, given Hawthorn's a team which has had so much finals experience over the last decade or so. You'd expect those big guns to fire.
Exactly, and Bruce never misses.
No.
He did in the final, so yeah, that was interesting.
Nat, obviously we talked a little bit last week about Richmond and how over the last few weeks they've started to, I wouldn't necessarily say slump given they've still been winning their games, but they've not been winning in the same convincing fashion that they were earlier in the year. However, pretty convincing on Thursday night.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a big win for the Tigers, and especially with Rewalt not even kicking any goals, but the others kind of stepping in for that and getting some on the scoreboard. So, I mean, to even just have the effect that they did in the game without those big players like Rewalt kicking goals, I mean, it just shows how good Richmond really are.
Yeah, it's a danger, isn't it, when you've got, as you said, players like Jack Rewalt, who was very quiet, really, by his own lofty standards. But they've just got so much, it's such a dynamic forward line they've got down there, and especially when you think about the fact that they're adding someone like Tom Lynch, most likely next season, which we'll be touching on later in the show. Not just for this season, but a game like this really has you thinking that the Tigers are going to be trouble for a little while to come, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. I reckon they're going to be a tough side to beat. Anyone that's going to come up against them in the finals is going to have a tough thing ahead of them. But yeah, so see how they go.
Angus, any highlights from the game for you?
I think it sort of locked in the fact that Richmond should be seen as the favourite and by a fair margin. I mean, they lost the hit-outs, the clearances, disposals and the tackles and managed to still win the game pretty comfortably. So I think their sort of game style of knocking it forward and doing anything to get it into that dangerous forward line is going to be difficult to stop. And as you said, with Jack Rewalt not having as much impact, when you have someone like Camden McIntosh step up and kick 3 goals, I think they're a pretty strong outfit, and a lot of teams are going to have trouble beating them on their day.
That knock-on style of play where you see them go through that run where they're smacking the ball over the top, they just seem to read each other so well, don't they?
Oh, and it works out perfectly with the players they've got, the likes of Higgins, Rioli, Caddy up in their forward line. That knock-on play and scrapping it anyway to get a goal, they've got the cattle to do it. So I think they've got a pretty good system, and yeah, it will definitely be tough to beat.
Now, another thing that we touched on last week was Alistair Clarkson, and I think a lot of people were expecting him to have an ace up the sleeve for this Richmond game, but not to be. Do you think the Hawks can bounce back from a loss like this?
Well, they are versing my trusty side tomorrow night, so I hope they don't bounce back. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? See what Hawthorn bring to the game tomorrow night, but there'll definitely be some fire in their belly, I reckon, because losing to Richmond, I don't think was on their agenda. So
yeah, definitely some trouble for the Hawks as well, in that Ben Stratton isn't out with injury. So They didn't come out of the match unscathed, which is always a big problem in finals, but they have got the double chance. Jessica, how do you think they'll manage next week?
I think they'll definitely...
This weekend, rather.
This weekend,
yeah. It's all
I think they'll definitely come back fighting. I think they got their nerves out of the way. And, I mean, it's Hawthorn. Like, they're always going to throw something in the spanner. I'm like, they'll definitely come back fighting. But, in saying that, I think Melbourne have the hunger in them to get the job done.
Excellent. Well, we'll touch a little bit more on that game this weekend later in the show. But we'll move on to having a quick chat about the Ds and the Cats match. And Jessica, I think you and I will just take a little rest and let the Geelong and Melbourne fans over here at the end of the table take it away. Guys, we'll let you fight it out amongst yourselves. What did you both make of this game?
Deflating. Very, very deflating way to end the season. Came into the finals with a bit of momentum, the Cats, but really couldn't do it on the day. Melbourne were a worthy winner though. We just didn't really have the leg speed to keep up with them. They looked so quick. They carved Geelong up through the middle. Geelong looked old and slow. But it really summed up the year that the Cats have had in a lot of performances where they leave their run too late. The hot start that Melbourne got. Geelong tried late in the game to come back and they did have their chances, but Melbourne probably learned from those past losses during the year to the Cats that you can't let them back in, and they did well in that last quarter when Jones kicked the sealer. I think that really kept the Cats at arm's length, and we didn't have a lot of performers on the day.
Yeah, before we go into touching on the Demons, Nat, I just would like to press you a little bit on Geelong. It's a tough position the Cats are in now. They've got a fairly, their best players, Dangerfield to Selwood, your Ablets are in their late 20s, early 30s. It's the premiership window for Geelong, and you've gone out of finals in the first week. Where to from here?
I think with that, the list having the likes of, 34-year-old Gary Ablett, still with a bit left in him, Hawkins, Selwood, Dangerfield, you have to try and capitalise, and I don't think they can go into a rebuild yet. And as we'll touch on later with the trades and free agency, they're going to still look to bolster that list and keep it strong, and I think one more crack at it would be nice, and I don't like the idea of Geelong bottoming out anytime soon, so another crack at the flag would be great.
And not to keep pressing me on you, because I don't want to, destroy your morning or anything so early on, but they've lost so many finals since that massive period of success in that late 2000s, early 2010s. It's just, and obviously you said bottoming out, that's one of the big, positives about Geelong is that they've never bottomed out. However, they really haven't got close to reaching those same heights. This is a problem with recruitment, a problem with the coaching structure, because they've not really looked particularly likely to replicate that success of those premiership years, despite the fact they've been in amongst the mix.
Yeah. I think it's that in finals you have to step up the game a bit, whereas Geelong have seemed in the past few years to think that their home and away best will be good enough to match it with teams in the finals. And it makes sense that it's good enough to make the finals, but unless you're digging a bit deeper, unless the players know that they have to do a bit extra, it's just not going to happen. Premierships don't just happen. You have to sort of lift that extra level, and they haven't been able to do it. So, the Cats have got faith in Chris Scott when he signed the 3-year contract extension, but yeah, it'd be nice to see him start winning a couple of finals, that's for sure.
The Geelong Post-Mortem podcast will go for a lot longer than 30 minutes, so we'll leave it there for now. Nat, Melbourne, obviously, for all of Geelong's downfalls, the Demons were super, super impressive. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you enjoyed?
Yeah, obviously I'm ecstatic about the result. Demons came in flying at the start. We managed to kick 5 goals in the first quarter and keep Geelong scoreless. Or goalless? Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, so it was a great start, and we had some players that really stepped up to the occasion. For example, James Harms really had a great job on Selwood, managed to keep him at a low, and also Sam Wiedemann stepped up to the occasion, kicking 3 goals. So yeah, it's definitely a great performance by the Ds.
Yeah, any other names to watch out for this weekend and over the rest of finals that you think stood up that are going to be, the defining factors in the Demons potentially making it further than this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. I think Viney coming back from injury as well was a massive positive for the Ds last week. So I think he'll continue his good form that he's been in, what he was in prior to his injury. So yeah, excited to see how he goes in the finals. And obviously the leaders like Jones and even Jordan Lewis and Salem, who really all stood up last week. Yeah, I think they'll be the kind of driving forces behind it all.
Yeah, just quickly to touch on James Harms, who was mentioned. I believe I spotted him at the NPNFL Division 2 Grand Final between Germana and Red Hill on the weekend, looking very happy. So hello, James, and thank you for supporting local football. Jessica, obviously as the balanced, unbiased view on the panel on this game, what did you make of it, and especially what did you make of the Cats?
Okay, so when I was watching the game, I was very disappointed in the behaviour of Geelong, especially Patrick Dangerfield and Joel Selwood. They were obviously behind in the game, and they looked like sore losers, and I was so unimpressed with how they behaved and how they controlled themselves, especially with Dangerfield giving away 6 free kicks, especially a bit angry about it. And then he comes out and is supposed to be, all political for the AFL Players Association, like the leader of that. He comes out with a column in the Herald Sun the next morning, describing the way he felt during the game and how he should have, if he can go back, he would have changed this, this and this. And I just thought, people want to see you perform, and for you to just talk about it afterwards, like, this is what I should have done. It just doesn't really mean anything. And I just wonder if anyone really cares what happens after the game. Like, that's where it all counts. And with Selwood giving away such a crucial free kick, I can see Angus cringing on the end here. It was such a crucial, critical time. Hawkins had the shot at goal, and Selwood let those little demons get the better of him on the sideline, right in front of that third umpire. I just thought that was disgraceful. So that's my little wrap up for you, Brodie.
Thanks for keeping things controversial. So that's what we'd like to see. Angus, surely a rather reply before we move on.
I think I'll cop the danger one. Those 6 free kicks were shocking, but I'll be honest, it was an awful moment when the free kick happened when Hawkins was lining up for the goal. But in that first half, Joel was probably one of our only players that was really genuinely giving his all, and understandably when the rest of your team are not doing it for you, the frustrations can get the better of you. And I think a few times in finals, Joel's probably just a bit fed up than when he's the one giving everything. So he's been a champion for so long, so I won't hear a bad word against Joel Selwood, that's for sure.
I think we just expect a lot, especially from Selwood and Dangerfield.
Sure, yeah.
He is a great player, and the Cats, although it may be done and dusted for this season, you'd be silly to rule him out for season 2019. So absolutely watch this space for the Cats. We'll move on to having a quick chat about the Swans and the Giants, the Battle of the Bridge over there. I think I tipped this to be the closest margin of the weekend in our last show last week, and I guess this just goes to show that I'm actually not very clever. An absolute pumping the Swans suffered at the hands of the Giants. I guess the big story out of the game was the fact that Lance Franklin barely touched the football the entire time. Nat, you were up in Sydney, not watching the game, but in amongst the vibe of it all, I suppose. What did you make of this match?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of people heading down to the ground that we saw when I was up there in Sydney. I don't know, it's obviously a bit disappointing what happened with Buddy. I mean, no goals. I know there's a bit of talk about him having a bit of a hip injury, but still, I don't know, you expect your leaders to kind of step up in those points of time, and he didn't, and yeah, it was not a result I was expecting, and obviously Sydney are going to be really disappointed in that.
For all the talk about Buddy Franklin not playing particularly well, a lot of credit has to go to Phil Davis. He's really cemented himself as one of the premier defenders in the league, and wasn't he impressive to watch against Lance Franklin over the weekend?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, to be able to control somebody like that who could potentially have such a big impact just shows his strength. And there was other players like for GWS that stood up, as Toby Green coming back from injury, who played a sensational game. GWS just had it much more than what Sydney did.
The thing I just really enjoyed about Toby Green's game, just he went about his business, nothing controversial as always, just kept things quiet. Angus, I don't want to get too far into the Toby Green thing, of course, because this is the sort of thing that could suck up all of our time.
Sure.
But what did you make of his return to football over the weekend?
Well, his impact was great. 27 touches, 3 goals, 3. He's a big game player, that's for sure. I didn't mind the kung fu kicks. I think
protecting.
I think if it's within the rules, he's doing the right thing. And there's been a lot of discussion about what to do about that rule and whether they'll make a change next year. I think you need to only look to the ruck rules, which are if your leg's extended and your boot makes contact, then it's a free kick. But if you've got a bent leg, I don't see the issue, because if you get your knee into them and you don't use your hands, you take a mark, it's fine. So I don't mind him protecting his space, and it's pretty cool to watch. So if it's a tactic that comes in next year, I wouldn't mind it. If when he kicked was it Luke Gowhouse in the face, it wasn't great. Last year, not a great look, but I'm on the Toby Green bandwagon, so I love it. And same as the Giants, I'm a big fan of them, and I think they can cause some damage in this final series.
Certainly, from a footballing point of view, he's such a huge in for the Giants. He's just so important to the way they set up, and we saw the way he played on the weekend. He was probably best on ground. He was phenomenal. Giants just really seem to be getting back all the right players at all the right times. Obviously, they're going to have to do it tough with playing an elimination final and being out of the top 4, but now they've got all these names back, how far can they go?
Yeah, I think with the likes of Green, Deledio, and Zach Williams came in for his first game of the year on the weekend and slotted in brilliantly across half back. So I think with their top end talent back, they could make a bit of a splash in the finals. But it was interesting to see that all 4 panel members tipped the Swans last week. Shows that the knowledge that was going on here. But I think the way they played, the way they started the game. Sydney just weren't up for the fight, and the Giants, I'm not saying it is their year, but I think they've realised that with the list they've got, they need to start capitalising, and they should make it a fair way through this final series, I'd say.
Jessica, obviously the Swans in a real tough position at the moment, and there's talks of moving some players on. Mm-hmm. I ask you as the North Melbourne fan, because every time a player is rumoured to leave a club, North Melbourne come in with the war chest and inevitably don't get them.
I know.
Some names thrown around include Dan Hannabury, Gary Rowan, potentially Luke Parker, shaking heads at the panels as I was bringing up this conspiracy theory earlier. Is it time for a Sydney rebuild, do you think, or continue on business as normal?
I think they need to figure out a plan of action. As we saw on the weekend, if Buddy's not kicking goals, who's doing it for them? You've got McVeigh, they re-signed. So they're sticking to their guns, but they're all getting a little bit older, so I think it is time for a bit of a move on and some young kids to come and get some experience to lift them up a little bit.
Oh, brilliant. We'll move on to having a quick chat about the final game of the weekend, which was the Pies taking on the West Coast Eagles over there at Optus Stadium in Perth. This was easily by far and away the best contest of the weekend. I think it's the 4th or 5th time that these teams have played each other in finals now. They've played out draws before. They always seem to have excellent ripping matches in finals, and this was absolutely no different. Nat, big game. Collingwood faded away at the end. What did you make of the Pies?
Yeah, obviously the Pies would be a bit disappointed with their outcome, especially how they got so close in the third quarter, I think, and then the kind of Eagles came back and took it away, the likes of Kennedy and Darling, who stood up at the end in the last quarters and kicked some really important goals. So, yeah, bad day for the Pies, but yeah.
You have to trigger my memory. Who did you tip last week? Who were you backing?
I think I tipped West Coast, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, obviously, there's huge outs in Nick Naitanui and Andrew Gaff are never going to help a side when you lose probably your 2 best players? Do you think that that's going to have a big impact on them in a preliminary final, or that home ground advantage they've got now that they've won this match, is that enough to see them into a granny?
I think so. Eagles have a pretty good record down at the stadium in Perth, so yeah, I don't think they'll be too fazed by those other players missing, but yeah, I think having a home final is definitely a massive advantage for them as well.
Especially given the fact they'll be playing a Melbourne side up there.
Yeah.
So the fact that they've got that advantage over there at Perth is a big win for them. Angus, chatting a little bit about highlights of the game, I think that it's hard to look past, despite the loss, Travis Varco's run-down tackle. Is that a moment that you saw? You want to talk us through that?
Yeah, it was great. Travis been through a lot, obviously, and anytime someone's sort of facing any adversity, if they can still front up and even just compete, but to actually perform and have some big moments was really great to see for Trav. But it was one moment in, as we said, a great game, probably one of the, if not the best game of the round. And yeah, I was impressed by the Pies, like we said. But yeah, the Eagles are pretty clinical, and the way they finished the game off was great, and they'll head in with a lot of confidence into that prelim final.
Especially given, Jessica, the way that the Eagles were considered by most at the start of the year to be probably a bottom 4 contender. I think a lot of people were expecting them to be, but the fact that Adam Simpson's been able to turn them around and turn them into such a force, obviously having a brand spanking new, beautiful stadium up there in Perth always helps, but haven't they been impressive this year?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a nice little finishing touch playing at the big old Optus stadium that they've just brought in. Yeah, I think it's full credit to Simpson as a coach and all their coaching team to get them into this position. I reckon they can have a good crack at the finals, especially they've got all the advantages going their way. But I reckon Collingwood, I still think they've got something in them for this weekend.
Here we go, pumping up the pies. Well, we'll have a little chat about those games coming up, and we're going to start off having a little chinwag about the Hawks versus the Ds. Nat, looking very nervous over there in the middle of that panel.
I am, and yeah, I'm going to the game tomorrow night, so I'm excited that I do get to see Melbourne play in a final. But yeah, obviously it's going to be a really big task for the Ds. I hope they can still feed on the adrenaline from last week and not let that all get to their heads a bit. I'm looking forward to seeing what Harms can do again on possibly Tom Mitchell or Isaac Smith. I take it he'll be doing a tagging role on one of those. So yeah, it's exciting, but I don't know, I'm feeling very nervous, yeah.
I mean, are they the real deal? I mean, people talk about premiership contenders when it comes to Melbourne. Are people getting ahead of themselves, or are we just going to have to wait and see how things go this weekend?
Yeah, I definitely think just take it 1 week at a time, and I think that's important to kind of keep in perspective. But I mean, it's fun to feel this kind of energy around a team. I mean, Melbourne's probably the most exciting team in the finals, considering that we haven't been in finals for so long. So I think it's great that people from all different kinds of teams are getting around them and backing the Ds. So hopefully they can feed on this and use it for the better.
How old would you have been the last time Melbourne won a final? Is this foreign? Like, are you okay?
Oh, I don't even know. I can't even focus on my day-to-day. No, I was definitely, I think I was like 12 years ago.
Do that.
Primary school. I was still in primary school. So, yeah, it's been a long time, and yeah, I haven't seen Melbourne play in a final, so I'm super stoked to head down there tomorrow night.
I guess a lot of the narrative obviously around Melbourne going into this game, but it would be a very, very silly football pundit indeed to count out a side like Hawthorn, especially with a coach like Alistair Clarkson at the helm. Has he got any tricks up his sleeve?
I think he definitely will. He would have had his colours lowered a bit after the Richmond game last week, and he'll look to have his influence over the game. But I'm most excited by the sort of Jordan Lewis versus the Hawks, or Frawley versus the Ds. That sort of narrative around it. It's great if Jordan Lewis can pull one over his old side. That would be an incredible result. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Hawks earned their double chance for a reason, but the D's got a lot of momentum coming in.
Yeah, that Jordan Lewis one. I mean, when you play at a club for such a long time, you know, having been at the Hawks for what, probably 10 years, maybe more, it must be so hard to come up against a side like that. Do you think his heart is entirely Melbourne now? There was an article during the week that he's well and truly, you're nodding your head over there, clearly in agreement, but it must be hard to come up against your old side in a final like that, especially an elimination match.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the thing with Jordan Lewis and those champions who are with Hawthorn for so long is that their main goal is winning, and they know what a winning culture is like. And I think regardless of the team, Jordan Lewis is a winner, and he's going to be wanting to be, at the end of the game, be on the winning side, and as he did in the elimination final, he had a huge role in just steadying everyone's nerves and using his experience to rub off on the other D's players. And I think he'll be a big factor in this week's game in terms of the nerves of everyone and just really settling the game. While it's going to be hot early, he'll play a big role in sort of helping the D's get over the line, which is what I think the result will be.
Jessica, I think the stat, very roughly from memory, going into that last final was that Melbourne had about 25 games worth of finals experience in their lineup, but I think 22 of them were Jordan Lewis, and then one from Jones, Melksham, and Hibbard from their glory days at Essendon when we lost our first final then. Now that Melbourne has a final under their belt, do you think that, you know, finals nerves kind of thing goes away now that they've got that win, or do you think that this Hawthorn experience can still play a factor?
I mean, I think it'll still get to them a little bit because they can't shake it off all in 1 week. But I reckon Melbourne have this hunger about them that will get them, I reckon it'll get them over the line. I'm most excited to see what Sam Wiedemann pulls out of the bag. He was so exciting to watch last week, and if he can stand up again, like against Hawthorn's classy forward line, then I reckon Melbourne has something to offer, and it'll be good to see them. Good to see them get over the line. Sorry, I'm just like all team Melbourne.
I'm all for it.
Well, it's really on the bandwagon. Angus, before we move on to the tips, one word answer. Jared Roughhead, last game for Hawthorn, yes or no?
Yes.
There we go. That could be worth very much digging into. Nat, we will get into the tips. Have you got what's the plan if Demons lose?
Oh.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do if they win?
Oh.
What's from here?
I don't know, I'll just take it as it comes, but hopefully I don't have to deal with a loss and I can deal with a win. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously Melbourne, if it doesn't go their way tomorrow night, it will just be straight sets onto next season. You've got to really pick up the ball straight away and start looking forward to what's ahead. But I think regardless, getting this experience and making it to finals and winning your first final is a big achievement in itself. So I hope, even if it fails tomorrow night, they can move on to bigger and better things.
Very, very level-headed. That's a response for you. All right, tips, Angus, starting from the far end of the panel. Who wins? How much?
I'll say the D's by 5 goals. I think they'll be comfortable winners over the Hawks.
I don't think it will be so comfortable for Melbourne, but I do hope we get up, and I think it'll only be by a few points maybe.
Yeah, I'm going with Nat on this one. I think it'll be a close game, but Melbourne will get over the line.
And I'm going to go with the Hawks by a goal, just by virtue of being a little bit different. The second game for the weekend, obviously the final game, we've just got the two, is the Pies taking on the GWS Giants at the MCG. This is going to be absolutely massive, especially Collingwood back in finals, playing at their home ground at the MCG, going to be an absolutely massive crowd. And geez, I would hazard a guess at saying it might be just a little Collingwood bias there at the MCG over the weekend.
I don't know about that. The Giants have got a huge fan base, and
Well, I mean,
I'm
obviously,
sure they'll come down to Melbourne.
You remember that Richmond final last year, very 50-50 crowd that was.
The noise from the Giants fans was insane.
Definitely. My ears are still ringing. No, it's going to be a very Collingwood-centric crowd. It's going to be an excellent game. There's a couple of question marks around the Giants, though. One of them in relation to a very good player of theirs in Josh Kelly, who I believe Callan Ward called him fit to go for this match, but he looked pretty hurt at the start of the Sydney game. And even if he is fit to go, I would hazard a guess at saying it's not 100% fitness. Nat, can GWS win without a superstar like that in full flight?
I'm not sure. I truly think that the Pies will be hungry to make most of their lost opportunities that they had against West Coast. So I don't know. I think the Pies, probably going to get up on this one, but I think, I'm not sure. GWS definitely have it in them to win, but I think it will be a bit close.
Yeah. Jessica, GWS so impressive over the weekends. Can they back that up?
I guess they were against a pretty flimsy Sydney. So
Flimsy Sydney,
yeah.
That's a pretty decent side.
Yeah. Well, on that night they just didn't show up, did they? So I think I'm with Nat. I feel like the Pies will get up. If they play with Kelly though, it could really be anyone's game. So with Kelly, maybe a win. Without, I reckon the Pies.
Josh Kelly, another one of those players that you did your research on when he was rumoured to go to North Melbourne.
I know.
last year, right?
I thought he would look great in the blue and white, but we didn't get our wish.
He's certainly a staying player for the Giants, and he's going to be a big factor for them. Angus, this is going to be a huge game. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, that MCG record that the Giants have of 2 wins and 12 losses is a bit alarming.
Jeez.
Yeah, except that one of those wins was against Collingwood this year. So I think that could go a long way for their confidence, for the Giants. But I think this resurgent Collingwood season that has been rolling along, and they've silenced a lot of doubters. It's been great, but I think it's going to come to an end, and I think the Giants have too much class.
What do you think's behind a 2-12 record like that? Is it just playing in front of such a big crowd? They're not used to the noise, or is it just genuinely something about playing football in Melbourne that has them rattled? Because I didn't realise it was quite that poor.
Yeah, and a lot of those losses have been big losses as well. There hasn't been a lot of close ones of the Giants at the G. Obviously early on in their life as an AFL club, they had some tough losses there, but yeah, they've really struggled. Maybe it's something to do with dimensions of the ground, or the fact that their fans are not really at a strong enough base yet that they can get a lot of fans coming down to Melbourne for those games. So if the fans have something to say this weekend, it could be, put a lot of emphasis on the Collingwood bandwagon rather than what the Giants can actually do. And if that crowd can get pretty vocal during the game, that could have a bit of an impact. But I just think that the Pies' defensive unit is not good enough to handle what the Giants have.
There you go. Nat, one of the big talking points about these two sides is the fact that they've been so rattled by injury throughout the year that really both of them have really struggled to field a full side at any point throughout the season. Now they're starting to get big names back. Obviously, GWS last week, we listed them, had a huge flurry of ins. Treloar for Collingwood was one who came in last week as well. They are starting to work their way back up to their best 22. How big an impact do you think it's had on both those sides, having to chop and change throughout the year, and is it going to cost any of them in this match?
Yeah, obviously there's been a bit of restructuring that both sides have had to deal with throughout the year in terms of lost players and then getting players back from injury. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of the people that are playing on the field, how well they can work together as a team and as a whole, and whoever gets that up on each other will do a better job in the game. So yeah, I don't think clouded by injuries, obviously it helps getting certain players back to help your team kind of flourish, but I think it just comes down to teamwork at the end of the day, because it is a team game, so it's not so much on individuals, I guess, but yeah, who knows.
We'll get stuck into the tipping. Jess, we'll start with you over on the near side, given we went with you last time. Who's going to win, by how much, and what's the path to victory?
Okay, I think Collingwood will win by 2 goals. I think Mason Cox will get his mojo back and deliver. He'll kick a few, I think. With Goldsack back in as well, that's a huge in for the Collingwood. And yeah, I reckon that'll help them get over the line.
Yeah, I agree with Jess. I reckon the Pies will get up. I'm looking forward to it being a really high-pressured contest, considering that both teams are so strong in their clearance work. But yeah, I'd reckon the Pies maybe by 14 points.
You mentioned the clearance work and the midfield battle. You've got the likes of Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Taylor Adams and Treloar up against Shield, Canelio, Ward and possibly Kelly.
You mean Essendon Football Club superstar Dylan Shield?
Oh yes, Dylan Shield, the next bomber, I'm sure. But I think the winner of that midfield battle will go a long way to winning the game, and I'm going to say the Giants by less than a goal.
I am going to back that up and say the Giants by less than a goal as well. I feel a little outnumbered on the panel. I've been kind of going with the upsets. But this is normally the time of the year I start to overrate the teams that finished from 5th to 8th, and I'm going to do it again and back the Giants in with this one. Before we move on to wrapping up and having a quick chat about trade rumours and big news over the weekend, we're going to throw to Matt, who's going to run us through some Instagram poll results, and we'll get your take on who's going to win on this weekend of football.
Thanks, Brodie. During the week, I put out a poll asking you who you thought would win the semi-finals for this weekend. Let's start off with the first semi-final between Hawthorn and Melbourne at the MCG, and overwhelmingly, 80% of you believe that Melbourne will get the job done over the Hawks. Can the Demons continue their fairy tale in September, or will the season campaigners put an end to that fairy tale? We shall wait and see. For the other semi-final, 58% of you believe that the GWS Giants will actually beat Collingwood at the MCG on Saturday night. Can the GWS Giants do it without Josh Kelly potentially, or will the Pies book a prelim final with the Tigers? What a sight that would be. So many questions to be asked, so many predictions to be made, but in the meantime, it's back to you, Brodie.
Thank you, Matt, for that insightful look at who is going to win over the weekend. Guys, we'll just wrap things up, but before we do, we'll have a quick little look at the news over the week outside of the game. So there's one thing that I brought up to you guys that I did want to mention, which was Hannah Mouncey withdrawing from the AFLW draft. I look down the barrel of the camera, I say this. I think that the way the AFL has communicated their policy on transgender footballers has been incredibly poor, and the fact that this woman had to put her private medical details online on Twitter, given she was subjected to so much abuse about her integrity and her character, the fact that she thought she had to put her private details on an online sphere like that for debate is absolutely disgusting, and I think the AFL should have done so much more to protect her. If they weren't gonna, well, if they don't want her playing in the league, then they should have provided her a framework that showed her the exact reasons why she shouldn't be playing. If she qualified under their current conditions, then you need to give her a proper and good reason why she shouldn't be let in the league, because I can't imagine how damaging it is to someone's mental health to be working so hard at something and not be given a reason why you're constantly rejected, and especially the fact that you have to put your private details online in the public sphere of debate is pretty disgusting. So anyway, that's my take, just to keep things, nice and light up for you guys. I don't know if anyone has anything to add on that, but I'll hear.
Well, I guess the AFL's never had to deal with this kind of situation before, so it's a first for them, but they definitely could have handled it a bit better and a bit more privately for Hannah Mouncey, and it's just unfortunate the way it has all gone down.
It's tough when you're a trailblazer in a sport, and I think it's probably be one of the things that is looked back on in a few years' time as a great failure of the current AFL administration, the fact that she's been treated the way she has. Whether she should or shouldn't play is a different debate, but I think it's pretty black and white, the fact that she's been treated like, I guess, well, in all honesty, dirt. And it's pretty not on. So anyway, that's my fun rant for the day done. We'll move on to having a quick chat about trade whispers, rumours and the done deals. Angus, I believe that you're all across this. You want to run us through who's going where and when and why?
Well, now that the Cats are out, the silly season is upon us, and obviously Nat can still enjoy the finals, but for our sides, it's the time of year we all look forward to once the team gets knocked out, and you can imagine different lineups and different players that are going to come in. So player movement's been increasing every year, and it's only going to get bigger this year. And there's a lot of rumoured names going around. I think the biggest would be Tom Lynch, though. I think whilst the deal may be pretty much done to the Tigers, it's going to have a big impact, and it has an impact on the whole player movement idea, in that it was brought in for some extent to equalisation, and he's leading one of the most struggling clubs in the comp to the likely premier. Well, I mean, it's such a big move, and I don't know what it does for the equalisation of the game, and what it does for a team like the Gold Coast Suns. It's a tough predicament for them to be in.
That Gold Coast culture issue is one that requires a lot more talking than we've got time for at the moment, because the fact they've had one captain leave, they're going to have another captain leave, and hell, they might even have another leave to Collingwood by the end of the season as well. Every single one of their captains leaving, there's got to be something not quite right there, right?
No, it's not a great look. I think that Stephen May deal to Collingwood is one that could get done, but I wouldn't say we'd lock it in yet. But I'll get on to some of the ones that we can lock in. Let's say Tom Lynch to the Tigers. He is restricted free agent, so we'll say it'll likely get done with a trade rather than free agency move. Luke Dalehouse will come to the Mighty Cats as an unrestricted free agent. The length of the deal and money is too good for him to pass up, and what a place to move to, the Cattery. Jared Pollock will make his way to North Melbourne. Dan Hannery, which was a recent revelation that he wanted to trade, he'll find his way to the Saints, I think. But yeah, there might be a few swans out the door. Gary Rowan's obviously going to go, and there's a bit of talk around Nick Newman, who is looking for a bit more money and might not stay at the Swans. So there could be a few out of the Swans, and I think we'll see Mitch McGovern make his way to the Blues. That is difficult for Adelaide, and they're having a few culture issues as well out there. There's a few players out the door, and someone as young as McGovern, who looked to be a big part of their future. That's disappointing for them.
Signed a 5-year contract last year from memory, did he not?
Yeah, so he's still got a few years to run on that deal, so that will have to be a trade. And if the Blues can get that priority pick, which they've been longing for, I think that should get the deal done. That, and maybe another couple of pick swaps later in the draft, should be enough.
Jessica, before we wrap things up, Jared Pollock, missing piece, happy with that?
Pretty happy with that, and hey, if we can get Gaff down as well, that would add a nice little piece to our puzzle. But you never know with Gaff. He looks like he's pretty settled with the whole West Coast culture over there, but does he come home to his family? We don't know. There's also the rumour of Braden Pruce heading to Melbourne, maybe. Does he want to be another backup ruckman? We don't know. So,
it's an interesting call, that one.
Yeah.
I think North might see Aaron Hall pop down there as well. That could be tossing up between a few Victorian clubs, but North seems to be the leader there, so he might bring a little bit as well. And if you can get Gaff, that is a game changer for the Roos.
sure is.
Finals contenders next year. We'll wait and see. I think that'll just about do it for us. We'll be back here next week chatting about all things finals football, wrapping up what's happened over the weekend at Melbourne, post-mortem or celebration. We'll wait and see. It's going to be very, very interesting. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like the Dscribe Facebook page to keep across all the wonderful work that our Dscribe writers are doing at the moment and to stay up to date with all your latest Dscribe Finals footy news. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it.